From giving Jason Tatum a technical foul for the power trip to just not being accountable for their terrible calls, there are tons of reasons why everyone hates the NBA refs. For starters, there are just too many controversial calls. You always have that one guy who's convinced that today's NBA is soft and players from older eras would never survive. It's irritating to hear, considering how the game has evolved over time with different styles of play. But lately, the referees and their blatantly bad calls are starting to make me wonder if that guy might be onto something. There have been multiple instances in recent seasons where foul calls and ejections have been laughably faulty. Take, for example, the game between the Golden State Warriors and the Charlotte Hornets. With seconds left in the fourth quarter and the Warriors leading 100-98, it's a jump ball at half court. LaMelo Ball wins the tip-off against Brad Wanamaker, but somehow the ball goes to the Hornets.
Hornets have the basketball.
After Gordon Hayward loses control and Draymond Green tries to gain possession, the refs make the call, and Green rightfully expresses his confusion and frustration.
Oh, did they give him a timeout?
But gets ejected without hesitation. The Hornets win the game at the buzzer, while the Warriors lose one of their best defenders. It's becoming increasingly common to see these kinds of debatable calls that impact the outcome of the game. Now, I'm not saying that the game is too soft nowadays, but I am saying that this is a major problem. It's no secret that officials tend to favor the offense, allowing players to bend the rules in their favor to score more points and sometimes even win games. But there's another reason that makes everyone hate NBA refs, and that's the controversial skill of drawing fouls. A few years back, James Harden was padding his stats by taking advantage of the NBA's best defenders and getting an absurd number of free throws. Everyone was talking about his controversial step-back move and how he seemed to draw fouls with ease.
Harden steps back, fires. Go! James Harden is the new...
And it's not just Harden. Kevin Durant had the league scrambling to implement the rip-through rule because he was so skilled at tricking defenders into fouling him. Even now, Trae Young of the Atlanta Hawks keeps throwing himself into defenders to draw fouls.
No layups. You can't give him layups in the paint.
Young with the floater, it's good.
And the refs fall for it 9 times out of 10. Drawing fouls has become a skill in itself, and it's a problem that needs to be addressed. But you know what? It's not just the players who are to blame. Referees have a tough job, and they never get enough credit. If they make the right call, it's just expected of them. But if they mess up, they're vilified and bashed by everyone. It's high time we give these officials some credit and come up with solutions to fix this mess in the NBA. It's not that hard, right? Or are we just going to keep pretending that everything's fine and dandy? Plus, sometimes it seems like the referees aren't even trying. In fact, this whole referee debacle in the NBA is nothing new. But lately, it's gotten downright infuriating. I mean, sure, referees are human and allowed to make mistakes, but sometimes you have to wonder if they're even trying. No disrespect intended, but it's like they're making calls with both eyes shut. We can't expect perfection, but come on, these players shouldn't be held accountable for these ridiculous calls anymore. NBA refs and players have never been on the same page, but they've managed to coexist. Though in recent years, the patience of some of these referees has worn thin. The calls this season have been so atrocious that fans are demanding fines for the most extreme screw-ups. And sometimes, it feels like the NBA refs are high on their own power. These constant power trips have been impacting the fans' enjoyment of the games. Seriously, the refs this season have been a joke. We've seen way too many examples of their ineptitude, and there's still plenty of basketball left to be played. Games have been messed up just because of a single bad call, and players are getting ejected faster than an underage kid at a bar. It's ridiculous how some people still blame the players for instigating the problem. That excuse might have flown a few years ago, but it's just not valid anymore. Fans who used to enjoy the physicality of the game in the 70s, 80s, and 90s are now subjected to flopping galore and acting performances worthy of an Oscar, like it's a soccer match or something. I'm not saying this era of basketball is soft, because it's not, but as a diehard basketball fan, it's getting harder and harder to watch these games. And let's not forget the massive list of controversies these referees have been a part of in recent times. I'm talking about all the ejections, technical fouls, and fan frustration. Take, for example, the Brooklyn Nets versus Los Angeles Lakers game. This was supposed to be an epic showdown between two NBA powerhouses, but the referees just had to ruin it. Kyrie Irving and Dennis Schroeder had a little verbal spat after a foul call. And what do the refs do? They eject both players.
And Schroeder apparently done as well. 19 points in 20 minutes.
Talk about overreacting. Fans were robbed of the chance to see these exceptional guards in action, all because the refs couldn't handle a little trash talk. And it doesn't end there. These refs are out of control, giving technical fouls for players just doing their jobs, like dribbling the ball. It's absurd. But wait, there's more. In the Boston Celtics game against the Minnesota Timberwolves, Jason Tatum was on fire, scoring a career-high 53 points in an incredible overtime win. But guess what? He almost didn't get to play the second half because of a ridiculous call. Tatum gets called for a foul, which was understandable, but then he bounces the ball nonchalantly, clearly showing he's not mad, and what does the ref do? Give him a technical foul. Outrageous. Tatum kept his cool and didn't argue because who knows what else the ref would have come up with. Fans were livid, and they let the refs know it with a "Ref, you suck" chant. Can't blame them. It's clear the refs are on a power trip, making terrible decisions and ruining the game for everyone. And the solution to all this? I think it needs to start with accountability. Look, I get it. They're not trying to piss off any fan bases on purpose, but when both sets of fans can agree that the call was absolute garbage, that should be a red flag. These refs need to be held accountable, and I'm not talking about just a slap on the wrist. Fine them. Yeah, they don't make NBA player money, but maybe if they knew they'd lose some cash for making a lopsided call, they'd think twice before screwing up again. In fact, it seems that they may already be making progress in this regard, because just recently, NBA refs finally acknowledged their mistake in a public apology. The referees dropped the ball, literally, on a crucial foul call involving Jason Tatum and LeBron James in a recent game.
Does not happen often.
And the outrage from fans and players was palpable. The NBA Referees Union issued a weak apology on Twitter, admitting their mistake, but it's not enough to soothe the frustration. The league's 2-minute report confirms the non-call was incorrect, but players like Anthony Davis are calling it unacceptable. Even the Lakers head coach Darvin Ham had to admit that blaming the officiating is getting harder to avoid, and it seems that they may actually be getting disciplined behind the scenes. In an interview with ESPN's Sage Steele, Commissioner Adam Silver claimed that officials are penalized for their mistakes, but the league doesn't publicize their discipline because that wouldn't be appropriate. Silver went on to explain that referees are graded based on their calls, and that determines whether they get to officiate in the playoffs or not. But those are all the reasons why everyone hates the NBA refs.
Zach Zarba, who's the crew chief, trying to calm her.
Yeah, it's been up and down. I mean, defense has